You know, there were too many home runs to talk about for just one episode. So now let's take a look at more of the greatest home runs in every franchise's history.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us on Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. And you can follow us and you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's visit FanDuel.com. Hey, it's the holidays. I hope everyone's having a nice holiday. I know I am. I'm enjoying doing some of these look backs at some of the great this and some of the great that's. And I was going to initially try to do all of the team's greatest home runs in their history in one show that I dropped on Christmas Eve. But here's the deal. There were too many. And I looked at the runtime and said, geez, I better split this in two. And I did. And so if you happen to wonder why I'm wearing the same shirt, yeah, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. We're doing part two right now. I'm going to record part two right now. Let's jump into the Marlins. The Marlins have a few. Now, the Marlins don't exactly have the most storied history in the history of baseball, but they have as many World Series titles as the Mets and more than the Angels at this point. As many as Cleveland. No matter if they're called the Naps, Indians, or Guardians, the Marlins, well, Cleveland fans know that. The Marlins put a dagger right into their heart in 1997. A home run in 1997 that one of the ones I was considering putting on was Devon White's 2-out grand slam in the division series in San Francisco when the Marlins came back and defeated the Giants and wound up sweeping them out of the playoffs in 1997. But I went with and there was also some big home runs by Moises Alou, by Charles Johnson, by Gary Sheffield. But the home run I picked was Bobby Bonilla hit a home run with Cleveland was up 2-0 in the seventh inning. Jarrett Wright was cruising, throwing a one-hit shutout, and looked like Cleveland was about to cruise to a World Series title. And Bobby Bonilla hit a home run. Now, it didn't give the Marlins the lead, didn't even tie the game. But like the Scott Spezia home run, it changed the direction of the series. And that put the Marlins back on there, and they wound up tying the game in the ninth and winning the World Series in the 11th. I have the Bobby Bonilla home run there. I have Alex Gonzalez hit a walk-off home run in game 4 of the 2003 World Series. There were several home runs in the 2003 World Series. Miguel Cabrera off of Roger Clemens. You know, there were big homers against the Cubbies. But I went with Gonzalez's walk-off home run because the Yankees were on the verge of taking a 3-1 lead in the series and basically making the Marlins an afterthought. But Gonzalez homering off of Jeff Weaver, not Mariano Rivera, who didn't play in that game. One of the few managerial blunders that Joe Torre had in the postseason during those times. Gonzalez's walk-off home run changed the tone of that World Series. But the home run I'm going to pick as the greatest home run in Marlins history was D. Gordon. Shortly after the death of Jose Fernandez, something that I'm still shaken up by because Jose Fernandez was one of my favorite players in baseball when he was pitching for Miami. And when he died in that boat accident and the Marlins were absolutely devastated, the first game back with everyone wearing the Fernandez's number, D. Gordon, not known as a power hitter, hit a massive shot in honor of his friend. And when he returned to the dugout, it wasn't jumping up and down and clapping. There were tears. It was a legit tribute to really one of the most fun players in baseball at his time who just was taken from us way too soon. So I believe that's the greatest home run in Marlins history. Now, for the Nationals, I'm only saying Nationals. I'm not saying Expos. I'm just saying Nationals. There's a couple that I have to sort of combine. Remember I said in the other episodes, there's sometimes you can't mention one home run without another. Or sometimes someone hit multiple home runs, and I got to pick one for this. One of the home runs I put on there was Jason Worth hitting a walk-off shot in the 2012 playoffs for the Nationals against the St. Louis Cardinals. And Zimmerman hitting a big home run in the first ever game at Nationals Park as he became the first homegrown star of the Nationals. In the 2019 Division Series, Game 5, which was a really great game, the Dodgers looked like they were in control, especially when Clayton Kershaw came out of the bullpen and got a huge strikeout to end the seventh inning. But Dave Roberts got a little cocky and kept them in. And Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto, two guys who signed giant contracts, but they were playing for the Nationals then, went back to back. And with that, the Nationals tied the game and sent it to extra innings. Now, Howie Kendrick hit the grand slam in the 10th inning, but that's not the Howie Kendrick home run I'm bringing up. And you know someone had a dramatic postseason when they hit a go-ahead grand slam in a do-or-die playoff game in extra innings, and that's not the biggest home run he hit that October. Howie Kendrick's home run in the 7th inning of Game 7 of the World Series is an absolute stunner. The Astros were dominating that game. The Nationals looked dead from the neck up, and with Zach Greinke dealing, it looked like the potential Hall of Famer was going to have his signature game. But he let up a home run to Anthony Rendon to make it 2-1. So naturally, it's the 2010s and eventually the 2020s. Everyone has to panic, and that's exactly what Hinch did. He lifted Greinke for reasons I still don't understand, and never brought in Cole, which reasons I'll never understand. And Howie Kendrick wound up hitting a 2-run home run off the base of the foul pole, and suddenly the Nationals had the lead in Game 7, and they would not relinquish it. That's, in my opinion, the greatest home run in Nationals history. Staying in the Beltway, a lot of great home runs in Orioles history, including Roberto Alomar's home run in the 1996 playoffs off of Jose Mesa, and Frank Robinson and Brooks Robinson homering off of Drysdale to start the 1966 World Series and one of the great upsets in World Series history. There are a bunch of them. Eddie Murray's 2 home runs in the World Series against the Philadelphia Phillies. A lot of great home runs in Oriole history, but I think a safe bet to say Cal Ripken Jr. homering on the day that he passed Lou Gehrig with all the baseball world watching Camden Yards that game, and Ripken was on a roll. All he had to do was show up and play the game. And he homered. And as Chris Berman said, oh my goodness, he's done it again. That's got to be the greatest moment in Oriole history and the greatest home run. Now, the Padres, there are a few there that I want to put on. I like the fact that Ricky Henderson set the all-time run scored record as a member of the San Diego Padres and did so with a home run. And along the way, he slid into home plate for the final run that passed Ty Cobb. Ricky Henderson, I mean, is it possible he's underrated? Ken Caminiti, who became the first major superstar to say, yeah, I use PEDs, hit a home run in Game 1 of the 1998 National League Championship Series to give the Padres the lead over the Braves in what was it's tough to say it was a stunning upset because the Padres were a 98-win team, but the Braves were the Braves. And Caminiti's home run to win Game 1 of the NLCS set the tone for that. But the greatest home run in Padre history, probably no doubt about this, Steve Garvey. His home run off of Lee Smith to tie the National League Championship Series in a series that was all Cubs. The Cubs were up 2-0 and was a best-of-5 series. They just had to win one game in San Diego, and all the world was rooting for the Cubs, and nobody was pulling for the Padres. And Steve Garvey's home run off of Lee Smith over the head of right fielder Henry Cotto tied the series at 2 games apiece and set up the Padres winning the pennant. And it was a phenomenal home run. And Garvey wound up being the National League Championship Series MVP. Let's go to the Phillies, shall we? The Phillies have a few. And you know what? I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to say Bryce Harper's home run against the Padres in the 2022 National League Championship Series, giving them the lead. He's a superstar who had his superstar moment. And you know what? I'm going to give him that. There have been a bunch of Ryan Howard home runs. There were a bunch of Greg Luzinski home runs. There's a bunch of Dick Allen home runs. Mike Schmidt had his share of home runs with the Philadelphia Phillies, and his home run in the 11th inning to help clinch the Phillies Montreal has to be one of the great home runs in Philadelphia Phillies history. I'm actually going to say Matt Stairs. Pinch hit home run in the 2008 National League Championship Series that really took over control of that World Series, of that National League Championship Series, sending the Phillies to the World Series that year. You don't agree with me? Please fight me. Let me know what you think. I forgot to mention the Cubs in the last episode. There's a bunch to pick from 2016. Javi Baez, Chris Bryant hit some big dingers. I'm just going to say the image of David Ross hitting a home run in his final at-bat during Game 7 of the World Series. Take your pick from 2016. Gabby Hartnett homered the Cubs into the home run in the Gloman in the fog to help win the 1938 pennant against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Has to be up there. And hey, like Sammy Sosa or don't like Sammy Sosa, but I'm having a 60-second home run on there. He helped save baseball. You may not like it, but that's what he did. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Pirates because there is a great Pirate home run, but we have to marry that with another home run. Do you know why? Because without one, the other doesn't happen. It'll make sense when we come back. Hey, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That happened to me. And I had a few subscriptions for some streaming video services. That's all I'll say. And I didn't even realize I was paying for them. Rocket Money made it so easy to track them down. It's like having a personal assistant for our finances. And sometimes you'll get a message like, hey, there was a big purchase you made. And I say, yeah, I did it. I made that purchase. But Rocket Money is essentially saying, we're just making sure. And do you know what? I'd rather have that than pick up my bank statement and go like, where the heck did all my money go? It went to all those services. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this summer. Rocket Money has 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the minimum features. I looked up, I saw, hey, there's a couple services there I don't use anymore. Rocket Money, boom, gets it all done. I use it to cancel services I don't use anymore. I've saved a ton. With our goals features, I've been able to automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Check out Rocket Money. Rocket Money needs a jingle, in my humble opinion. All right, let's get back to all these great home runs because there are almost too many home runs to count. Where did we leave off here? Now, we talked about the Phillies. Let's talk about the Pirates. Now, I got to say, there's all of the Pirates home runs I'm going to mention here took place in Game 7 of the World Series. And yes, a lot of these home runs I'm going to mention, we lean a lot on the playoff success. Roberto Clemente hit a big home run in Game 7 of the 1971 World Series to ice the Orioles and cement his World Series MVP trophy. By the way, another person iced the Orioles with a Game 7 home run, and that would be Willie Stargell. Pops hit the go-ahead home run in the 1979 World Series and putting an exclamation mark on a phenomenal World Series performance. I have to link two home runs together for the greatest home run moment in Hal Smith should be remembered as one of the great heroes in the history of the World Series. He hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning with the Yankees leading. The mighty Yankees, with Berra and Maris and Mantle and Whitey Ford and Elston Howard, managed by Casey Stengel, all the legends, and they were on the verge of winning yet another World Series. And Hal Smith, a third-string catcher, hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning to give the Pirates the lead and put the Pirates stunningly to within 3 outs of winning the World Series. He was this close to becoming one of the great legends in the history of baseball. But the Yankees rallied in the top of the 9th, and Mickey Mantle did a weird head fake move in a play that could have been the clinching out of the World Series, and he dove back to first base, and the tying run came scrambling in. Trust me, it was weird. And it sent the game tied into the bottom of the 9th, where Bill Mazeroski hit the home run to clinch the World Series. Bill Mazeroski's name became synonymous with great World Series home runs. It probably is the main reason why he made it into the freaking Hall of Fame. And poor Hal Smith on the outside looking in. And with that, I have to say, Hal Smith, you're remembered here. The Texas Rangers had some big home runs in their time. Adrian Beltre hit 3 home runs in a division series clincher against the Tampa Bay Rays, which has got to be worth something, as is Nelson Cruz with a walk-off grand slam in the ALCS of 2011 against the Detroit Tigers. But once again, we have to Voltron 2 home runs together for the greatest Ranger home run of all time. And that's got to be the 2023 World Series, with the Diamondbacks having the lead in the bottom of the 9th to take a 1-game lead in the series and putting the Rangers on their heels. Corey Seager, who would go on to become the World Series MVP, becoming the first player to win the World Series MVP in both leagues, tied the game with a bottom of the 9th home run. And Adolis Garcia, who was so amazing against Houston in that ALCS, won it. So the law firm of Seager and Garcia, much like combining Hal Smith and Bill Mazeroski, that's the greatest Rangers home runs of all time. Plowing through the Rays, Mike Brousseau hit a go-ahead home run to help ice the Yankees in the 2020 Division Series, the COVID year, off of Aroldis Chapman. Wade Boggs got his 3,000th hit as a member of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in 1999 and did so with a home run. And he celebrated with a great, basically kissing the ground. And it was probably the first great moment in Tampa Bay Rays history, but there's no doubt about this one. The wild game 162 of 2011, when the Red Sox were on the verge of winning and the Rays were on the verge of losing, and suddenly both teams flipped. And suddenly the Johnson home run to tie it. So we got a Voltron together. Johnson home runs tied it in the bottom of the 9th. And Evan Longoria homered just as the Red Sox lost. Longoria homered. And before anyone knew what the hell was going on, the Rays were going to the playoffs thanks to Longoria. Now with the Reds, there are a bunch of ones, and I had to sort of pick and choose which ones for some of the great players who hit big home runs for the Reds over the years. I have Jay Bruce hitting the home run to clinch the 2010 division. The Reds hadn't been in the playoffs for a long time, so when Bruce's home run cleared the wall and the Reds were Central champions, that would have been something else. That was something to be sure. There are a bunch of Johnny Bench home runs, and I was this close to picking the one in the 1972 playoffs when the Reds were 3 outs away from being eliminated by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Johnny Bench hit a home run over the head of Roberto Clemente, what would be his final game. But I decided to give Johnny Bench on the 2 home runs he hit in the Game 4 World Series clincher of 1976. that cemented his World Series MVP, cemented his Hall of Fame career, and put aside any doubts that the Big Red Machine were a team that, stumbled in the postseason. They won the World Series the year before in the thriller against the Red Sox, and then they steamrolled the Yankees in the 76 World Series as Johnny Bench homered twice. But I'm going to say the greatest home run in Reds history, and Red Sox fans look away. Bill Lee tried to throw a blooper pitch to Tony Perez with a 3-run lead, and Tony Perez hit it into the upper deck of Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. Now, that may not sound impressive, but the game was played in Fenway Park, and he still hit it all the way to the upper deck of Riverfront Stadium. It didn't come down. Again, didn't tie the game, didn't give him the lead, but it turned the game around. A 3-0 looked like Red Sox thrashing of the Reds suddenly was 3-2, and the Reds chipped away and chipped away. And Tony Perez's home run set the stage to eventually quiet the Fisk and Carbo home runs and give the Reds their first championship since 1940. Did I mention Fisk and Carbo? Does that mean the Red Sox are coming up next? All right, with the Red Sox, there are so many great ones to pick. Yastrzemski a bunch of Yastrzemski home runs, including his 400th home run. Ted Williams' final at bat was something else. I have to have Dave Henderson in the 86 ALCS with the Red Sox down to their final strike, hit the home run to give the Red Sox the lead. And that game went into extra innings. And Dave Henderson wound up getting the game-winning RBI in that. And, of course, he hit the home run to give him the lead in Game 6 of the World Series. But that's all we're going to talk about that. There are so many great David Ortiz home runs over the years. He had a walk-off home run to clinch the division series in 2004. And does that even crack his top 5 Red Sox home runs? We'll see you tomorrow night when he homered off of past Gary Sheffield. He hit the home run in Game 1 of the World Series. He hit so many home runs over the years, including in 2007 when they won. But it was the grand slam and the cop jumping up and down and Torrey Hunter flipping over into the bullpen. The Red Sox looked terrible in Game 1 of the ALCS, and they looked even worse in Game 2. It looked like the Tigers may sweep them. And instead, at that moment, with a grand slam by Ortiz, the Boston Strong team tied that game, and they wound up winning it on the Saltalamacchia hit in extra innings. And the Red Sox went on to win the division, to win the league championship series against what looked like a superior Tiger team, and then beat a really good Cardinal team in 6 games. And it all started with Ortiz and the cop. But we need to combine 2 other home runs. Everyone remembers Carlton Fisk. It's one of the iconic moments in the history of baseball. The home run off of the foul pole. And it wasn't the most dramatic home run of that game. It wasn't. Because Bernie Carbo's home run was actually more dramatic. Bernie Carbo's home run tied the game when they were down 6-3, and Carbo looked terrible, and the Reds looked like they were running away with the game. Carbo's home run turned the game around and set up the Fisk home run. So Fisk Carbo, and I'm saying it where the superior one is second, the Fisk Carbo home run has to be the greatest home run moment in Red Sox history. By the way, about the Guardians, and I mentioned Fernandez, Ken Kelter, and Tony Pena, I do need to make a note. I didn't forget Rajai Davis. I didn't. I'm saving Rajai Davis for another series that I'm doing about the great moments for players on teams that lost a postseason game. The Rockies, talked to Paul Holden about this, came down to these 3. We have the Cargo completing the cycle with a walk-off home run. I have Dante Bichette christening Coors with a 14th inning home run shot, but Todd Helton's walk-off shot that really sparked the Rocktober rallies is what I'm putting in as the Rockies' greatest. For the Royals, Mike Moustakas' huge home run in Anaheim to give the Royals a shocking victory that really torpedoed the best chance we ever had for a Mike Trout World Series. Alex Gordon tied the game one of the 2015 World Series off of Familia and changed the tone of that series right away, sending into extra innings. The Royals wound up winning that game in 14 innings. The game-tying home run by Alex Gordon really took the pressure off of Hosmer, who made a critical error to give the Mets the lead. But the greatest home run in Royals history, it's got to be the Pine Tar game. It's got to be George Brett running and about to kill the umpire. Brett had so many great home runs, including the one that basically clinched the pennant for them in 1980 and some big ones in the 85. But when you think of George Brett home runs, it's got to be the Pine Tar game. It's my second favorite clip of George Brett. The other is about him eating crab legs in Las Vegas. If you know, you know. Tigers have a lot of great home runs. Hank Greenberg hit a grand slam to basically clinch the 1945 pennant. You can't have a list of Tigers home runs without Hank Greenberg. In 1984, with the Tigers on the verge of clinching the World Series against the Padres, but Rich Gossage on the mound for San Diego, the Dick Williams told Rich Gossage, walk Kirk Gibson. He didn't want to. There's the famous clip of Sparky Anderson yelling to Kirk Gibson, they don't want to walk you. And Kirk Gibson responded with an upper deck home run that basically iced the World Series. But the greatest home run in Tiger history has to be Maglio Ordonez's home run in 2006 to sink the A's and send the Tigers to their first World Series since 1984. The Minnesota Twins, all these are going to be postseason ones. Gary Gaetti, remember the Twins in 1987 were considered to be just happy to be there against the mighty Detroit Tigers. And Doyle Alexander was absolutely unbeatable down the stretch. And Gary Gaetti homered twice against him in game one of the ALCS and put the Tigers on their heels. Dan Gladden, in that World Series where the Twins were not expected to do much against the St. Louis Cardinals, Dan Gladden hit a grand slam in game one, setting the tone for the shocking Game 7 championship. But the greatest has to be Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett, who made a spectacular catch in Game 6 of the 1991 World Series, still the greatest World Series I ever saw. He hit the walk-off home run off of Charlie Leibrandt, sparking the classic call by Jack Buck, we'll see you tomorrow night. Joe Buck repeated that several times. The White Sox don't have the story to history as many other teams do that are as old as them, but I picked a few for them. In 2008, the White Sox were in a one-game playoff against the Minnesota Twins. They won the game 1-0 thanks to a home run by Hall of Famer Jim Thome. A few years ago, when the White Sox were actually good, they had that fabulous Field of Dreams game against the New York Yankees, and Tim Anderson's home run into the corn, I'm sorry. That's a great moment. That was an all-time moment. You got to put it on there. But once again, we got to combine two. Now, with all due respect to Joe Creedy, with all due respect to Jeff Blum, we got to go to Game 2 of the 2005 World Series. Paul Konerko hit a go-ahead grand slam to give the White Sox the lead, but no. Jose Vizcaino and the Astros tied the game, and Scott Podsednik, who had as many regular season home runs as I did in 2005, 0. He did hit a home run in the playoffs against Boston and hit a shocking walk-off home run to win Game 1 of the World Series. So I got to give it to Podsednik and Konerko, which brings us to the single hardest one to narrow down to 3, which would be the New York Yankees. So many ones. You have the alleged called shot by Babe Ruth. How much that was true, we'll never really know. But you also have things like Babe Ruth's 60th home run in 1927. That's got to be up there. Mickey Mantle's walk-off home run in Game 4 of the 1964 World Series. That's got to be up there. You got so many Yogi Berra, Lou Gehrig home runs. How many giant home runs in the 2001 World Series with the game-tying home run by Tino Martinez, setting up Mr. November by Derek Jeter. And then the next night, Scott Brosius' home run. Those have to be on there, right? There's so many great home runs to put on there. And then I guess these have to be, and you have the Aaron Boone home run in 2003. I mean, there's so many to choose from. I guess we have to start with Reggie Jackson in 1977, the night he became Mr. October with 3 home runs off of 3 different pitchers on the first pitch each time. That's one of the most mind-boggling performances, and it was one which was a giant middle finger to all the people who questioned whether or not he could handle New York. Speaking of middle fingers to people who gave him a lot of crap, I got to have Roger Maris and home run number 61, that he did it with all the scrutiny and all the pain that he went through that year. Is it Bucky Dent? Is Bucky Dent the greatest home run in Yankee history? It certainly was a legacy crusher. That was the greatest Red Sox team ever assembled at that point. And then it was Bucky Dent. It wasn't all those sluggers they had on that team. Chambliss, Nettles, Piniella, Munson, Reggie Jackson. And it was Bucky bleeping Dent who hit the 3-run home run with 2 outs in the 7th inning off of former Yankee Mike Torres, who the year before was the pitcher on the mound clinching the World Series, clinching the game where Reggie Jackson hit the 3 home runs. Bucky Dent. The entire history of the Red Sox-Yankee rivalry would have changed if the Red Sox won that game, and they probably would have won the World Series that year. And the likes of Fisk, Rice, Yastrzemski, Dwight Evans, Fred Lynn, Louis Tiant, Bill Lee, Jerry Remy, Rick Burleson, Butch Hobson, George Scott all would have had their rings. And instead, that was the moment where people started looking around going, hey, wait a minute. Is there really something to this? It was legacy changing. So there you go. 2 parts, covered every team. Did I miss one? I think I caught everyone. Let me scroll up on my list there. I did mention the Rangers, mention the Pirates, mention the Nats, mention the Dodgers, the D-backs, the Cubs. Yeah, I think I caught everybody. So if you disagree with me, let me know. Let me know which ones you missed. Let me know which ones you would put down there. And next week we'll talk about some of the ones that maybe I picked that you don't agree with, or ones that I may have forgotten and slipped through the cracks. But I think I did a pretty good job figuring out which one of these teams we're in. So let me know, and especially as we go towards the new year. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Finishing up the greatest home runs of all time list and turning it into 2 shows. Did I really think I could have said all this in one? This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.